This is the story of a great city, one which was both revered and feared throughout its lifetime. It was thought to be the most powerful and technologically advanced civilization of its time. However, after living in luxury for hundreds of years, it was wiped out in a single day by a horrific natural disaster. This is the story of Atlantis. But wait, hold on. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Did the great city of Atlantis really exist, or is it just a myth? In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into this highly debated topic and explore the possibility of this legendary civilization existing in reality. So make sure to watch until the end to find out everything about it. Atlantis, the lost city. If you've never heard of Atlantis before, then prepare to get caught up in a whirlwind of myths and legends. Plato, a Greek philosopher, was the first to mention Atlantis around 360 BC. According to his account, it was situated in the Atlantic Ocean, but sank beneath the waves many years ago. To this day, the full story remains unknown. But according to Plato's writings, the Atlanteans were a strong naval force who ruled over much of Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. He also claimed they had immense wealth and a very advanced culture. Their society was peaceful at first, but eventually their greed got the best of them. As a result, the gods became angry and punished them by sinking their entire empire into the sea. He described it as being 10,000 talents of gold per year, which would be worth more than $200 billion today. And apparently it took 10 months to plunder all of their riches. Since Plato's first mentioned Atlantis, there have been many theories as to where it could have been located. Some believe it could have been in the Mediterranean or even the Caribbean. Others think that the continent was actually near the Strait of Gibraltar and fell victim to rising sea levels. However, the one theory that has recently gained a lot of traction is the idea that the great city was actually located in Antarctica. Supporters of this claim state that the continent was once above water, but millions of years ago, a catastrophic event caused it to become buried in ice. Even if it did sink, the people themselves didn't necessarily drown. Instead, they likely found another piece of dry land to settle down on. If you ask me, though, I think Atlantis was located in the Mediterranean Sea. I believe this because most of the evidence points to this area. For example, Plato made no mention of ice or snow when he spoke of Atlantis. If anything, he described it as being quite warm and sunny. What's more, many other civilizations had risen and fallen in the Mediterranean during this time, including the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, so it makes sense that Plato would have referenced another one. Finally, the exact same thing happened here thousands of years later when Rome fell. So perhaps some of the surviving Atlanteans fled to Italy and started a new settlement. However, there is still one big problem with this theory, and it has to do with the timeline. See, according to Plato, Atlantis existed around 9,000 years before his time, which would place its founding somewhere between 11,000 and 12,000 BC. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of evidence of human life from this period, and what little there is doesn't exactly paint a pretty picture. During this time, most people lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers. They hadn't yet developed agriculture, which wouldn't come along for several more millennia. As such, it seems unlikely that any large settlements could have formed at that time, let alone an empire with a navy that stretched across 3 continents. The only exception to this rule would be the Minoan civilization. Located on the island of Crete, they lived around 2700 BC and are believed to have lasted for more than 1,000 years. What's interesting is that they were known for their incredible palaces and artwork, and some historians believe they may have even had a working knowledge of electricity. This could very well be the advanced technology Plato was referring to. Unfortunately, around 1700 BC, their empire was destroyed after the volcanic eruption of Thera, otherwise known as Santorini. Today, most experts agree that this event led to the collapse of the Minoan civilization. But some believe that the destruction was even greater and that the nearby Mycenaean civilization was also taken out. Perhaps these were the true origins of Atlantis. However, others have suggested that Atlantis was actually located in the Caribbean. There are several reasons for this, including the fact that the Mayan civilization existed here around 2000 BC. Just like the Minoans, the Mayans were very advanced for their time and are believed to have been the first to develop calendars, complex mathematical systems, and even zero. What's more, it's rumored that they once built a great city which connected many of the settlements throughout Mesoamerica. Sadly, it suffered the same fate as all the others and was abandoned sometime before 1600 AD. But for centuries, it stood tall and was home to a thriving population. Could this have been the lost city of Atlantis? Well, it certainly seems possible, especially considering that they were famous for their architecture and engineering skills. After all, they were the ones who built the largest pyramid in the world, which is still standing to this day. Of course, there's also the theory that the great city was actually located in Antarctica. Proponents of this claim state that the continent was once above water, but millions of years ago, a catastrophic event caused it to become buried in ice. Even if it did sink, the people themselves didn't necessarily drown. Instead, they likely found another piece of dry land to settle down on. But there isn't much evidence to support this either. Sure, humans have lived in Antarctica, but only recently. Before that, the continent was completely off-limits due to its extremely harsh climate. Between 55 million and 50 million years ago, however, things were quite different. The climate was warmer, allowing animals and humans to roam freely. If Atlantis really did exist, it's possible they somehow survived the Ice Age and made it to Antarctica. But unfortunately, there are no archaeological sites from this period, so we may never know for sure. What happened to them? Now let's say that Atlantis really did exist. What happened to them? Why don't we have any records of their existence? And where are their descendants? These are all very good questions, and unfortunately there's no single answer that can satisfy everyone. After all, Plato was the only person to ever mention Atlantis, and he likely wrote it as a fictional story rather than an accurate account. Nevertheless, there are several theories as to what happened to the Atlanteans. Some believe they simply integrated into other societies and became indistinguishable from the general population. Others believe they fled to remote areas of the world where they've managed to live in hiding ever since. The truth is, nobody knows for sure. But whatever the case may be, it's safe to say that they left behind a legacy that will live on for centuries to come. In conclusion, while we may never know for sure if Atlantis really existed, there are several pieces of evidence that suggest it may have. From the similarities between Plato's description of Atlantis and the Minoan civilization, to the possibility that the Mayans were inspired by Atlantean culture, there is a lot to consider. Whether Atlantis was a real place or just a figment of Plato's imagination, it's clear that it continues to capture our imaginations today. The idea of a lost civilization with advanced technology and a rich history is incredibly appealing, and it's no wonder that people have been searching for Atlantis for centuries. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll uncover the truth about this mysterious civilization and finally solve the mystery of Atlantis. Thank you for watching. What are your thoughts on Atlantis? Do you think it really existed, or is it just a myth? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.